First off, I want to thank all you all because here lately we've been getting a lot of support from y'all. During Christmas, we had some oil field companies pitch in, along with the Safety Coalition, to provide some food and meals for our troopers that were working during the Christmas break. While everybody else was out celebrating Christmas, our troops were down at the border working. So I want to deeply thank y'all for that. And we love the support, especially during the rough years we had previous to this. It's great to see the communities come back together again. With that, I also want you to know that we have some great women and men that work for the state that around the clock are doing their best to provide the best safety for y'all and the best security for you all. And so the two things I'm going to talk about today is, number one, I want to tell you what we're doing at the border to give you all awareness of. And the reason I want to tell you about what we're doing at the border is I know there's a lot of questions of why do we see a lack of presence of troopers, in our counties, in our areas, that we normally used to see a big, heavy presence for. And so this will probably better explain why that's happening. And then towards the end of it, I also want to tell you what we're doing to still try and help, with some of the things that are occurring, especially in the Odessa Permian area and in the patch fields and everything else to help with the increased amount of commercial vehicle traffic that we have. So with that, I'm going to go into Operation Lone Star and explain to you what we're doing and how we're doing it. So as you can see up here, these are the primary border counties that we're covering. Now, Operation Lone Star goes across the whole border of Texas and Mexico. But our region, this is what we cover in the West Texas region. We don't have near amount the traffic that the RGV is getting, but we are seeing, especially here in the past 2 to 3 weeks, been seeing a really big increase. So with that, if you see where Culberson, Husbeth, and Jeff Davis meet, that's one of our hot spots. And then right down there in Terrell County, you can see as our other hot spot. And as you can see, those areas are really close to interstate highways and U.S. highways. That's why those are our hot spots. It's a little bit harder to hike through Brewster County and Presidio and be able to make it to the main highways to get to where they need to get to. These are divisions from the department that are currently working Operation Lone Star. Of course, Highway Patrol is our biggest piece. That's the most personnel that we have down there. Then we have our AOD, Aviation's Operation Division, which plays a vital role, especially in some of those areas that are very rural and rough terrain. They get into those areas and able to track some groups to be able to identify, and then even with that, end up putting some of our personnel on the ground to do some tracking to assist Border Patrol in apprehending some of these larger groups. We have our Criminal Investigations Division, is once we get some of these smugglers, because a lot of these groups are being run by smugglers, right? A lot of them are USCs that are running these groups, and so what we do is once we apprehend and identify who the smuggler is, CID comes in, tries to do the interview, trying to obtain more information as to what routes they're taking, how much they're getting paid, and trying to figure out what organizations in the Mexican side, are providing all this support for the increased migration. Other piece that we have is the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division, which we'll call ICT. Those are mostly our analysts, and what they do is they collect data for us on increase of apprehensions, and not to mention the hotspot areas and zone areas by going through certain data. They also monitor our drawbridge cameras, which in some of these later slides you're going to see some of the pictures from our drawbridge cameras that identify some of the things that we end up seeing coming across first, and then we end up working with all our components in order to get to some of these groups. These are the agencies that we're working with. Of course, Border Patrollers is the one we're supporting the most, and then with that, we have all the following agencies that you see up there that are also assisting during this operation on our West Texas side. The big important thing about working OLS is us going down to the border. I know you like having us up here, and I know it helps out a lot, but just keep this in mind. Everything that our troops are doing down at the border is preventing more crime from coming this way. And so we strongly believe that everything that we've been doing since we started last year has significantly helped to prevent more crime from coming up this way. And so we're going to continue to do this, and if the big question is how much longer are we going to do this, we don't know. But all we're doing is we're planning for this year already. As we move along, we're progressing with our operations. We're using more technology, and we're getting efficient at what we're doing and better at what we're doing. As you can see here, when I was talking about the drawbridge cameras, these are some pictures of what we capture on those drawbridge cameras that are down at the border. As you can see in this top left one, the guy with the sweater that says Mexico on it, you can tell already he's the one that's leading the group. So that's your smuggler, and those are the ones that we're trying to, once we get the group, those are the ones that we really want to try and hammer down on. Those are the ones that we try and put the felony arrest on. We try and do the interviews and try and prevent them from leading any more groups. As you can see, as they move on, they get pretty savvy. You see that top group, how they're in camouflage. So it makes it difficult for us in Border Patrol to go out there and identify them. I was talking about AOD, or aviation support. As you can see right there, the top one, I mean, that picture illustrates everything right there, where the helicopter is right over a group that was just apprehended. But day in and day out, they're out there flying, they're out there trying to get in these groups, they're getting savvy. With that, the groups are also smuggling drugs, as you can see at the bottom left. Those were some bundles. I think that was probably about 250, 300 pounds of marijuana that they left right there as they ran when aviation was down there in the ground looking for them. So some things we're trying to capture when we do a lot of this is not so much the groups, but we don't know who's in the group. We don't know if they're terrorists. We don't know if they're deported felons from other crimes which we've already captured. There's gang members that have been deported that we're capturing in these groups. And of course with that, they're using that opportunity to smuggle drugs. So the same organizations that smuggle drugs are also in charge of smuggling the humans. So it goes hand in hand. You see up here briefly, I won't go through all the stats, but you can see that these are the numbers that we've had since we started operation last year in May. So we're almost getting up on a year of total activity. Now you see Big Bend area, you can see the numbers there. You see El Paso. Del Rio, the reason why we have Del Rio up there is even though Del Rio falls into the RGV, when you go from Valverde County west, we start getting to Terrell County. So a lot of those stats are Valverde County and Terrell County. Again, this is a heat map. This shows where a lot of our activities, now these are all reports that we've had within the past 6 to 8 months. And as you can see, those are all the events that we have captured. So with that, putting all that together, you can see kind of where the flows are coming from. So again, going back to what we're talking about with ICT and data and analysis, we use that to help us better navigate where we want to be. And the reason why we want to do that is because we want to try and be as efficient as possible and still trying to accomplish the mission so that we can free up some of our troops to come back home and work in the areas here to kind of help with the other things that are going on. These next slides just going to show you highlight some of the apprehensions that we've done, just so you all can get an idea of this kind of stuff that we're seeing while we're down there. So the first one, 2 significant seizures on firearms. We got firearms that are going south, right? Of course, we talked about the drugs that are coming up north. Currency seizure. Well, that first one I think was the biggest one we got so far. It was close to $1 million. Again, a lot of this stuff goes hand in hand. The same people that are bringing money down are probably the same ones that are probably going to help smuggle humans back across. The guns that are going south into Mexico are to help those smuggling organizations to fight off other organizations or even use it against us. Now, finish up with OLS. We'll go into our second priority, which we already identified as, being here in the oil field area. So West Texas, we're unique. Some of the other regions have one specific thing or one specific threat, as we like to call it, but we're very unique. We got the border, and then now we got the oil fields. And with increased production, of course, as you all know, and that's why we're here, we're concerned about the safety, the amount of crashes, what's going down the road, how can we prevent the crashes, the infrastructure, the roadways and the way they're built, the construction zones and everything else. So as I was talking about earlier, we're always trying to figure out the best ways that we can totally serve our region. So identifying what we know about this area, we're trying to alleviate to try and get more troops and trying to do some operations. As you can see, prior to our first operation this year, on the left is the amount of crashes, right? You can see those data points up there. And then after we did our first operation, you can see there was a slight decrease, right? So that's what we want to continue to do. Now, the first operation we conducted was in Loving and Winkler County. And as you can see on that map there, prior to our first operation, we had, what about significant number of crashes, but then you go down to afterwards and they only got 3. So we know that with data, if we come in and we start doing more operations, we can help to decrease the amount of traffic crashes that we have and, of course, the amount of fatalities, right? Because we don't want fatalities. So with that, that was all I had to present to y'all. Again, I just wanted you all to know what we're doing as a department. We also want you to know that we hear your concerns. We know what's going on in our region, and we're trying to do our best to accomplish all the missions that we need to in order to keep our region safe and secure.